Okay, my name is James Williams Jr. I just did part one, so I'm going to do a part two of our Marvel review. So, like I said in the other video, I've been watching videos about how your generation of today versus my generation of today in the Redconing of Marvel back between 2008 and 2010 has totally screwed me up. And all the facts that I know no longer exist in your Marvel universe. Now, my Marvel universe, I wouldn't have wanted anything to change, so let's begin with the fucking changes that have been noticed. Alright, we talked about Thor in the last one, and I deviated a little bit and went into some Greek mythology and some other stuff and knowledge and annuals and stuff like that. This video, I'm only going to specifically speak on maybe 4 characters. Those characters are Colossus, the Incredible Hulk, Juggernaut, and Wolverine. Alright. Okay, 5th character, Cable. So, because Cable will be the last. So let's go with Colossus first. Colossus initially is a Russian. His name is Peter Rasputin. He is the middle child of 3 children. He has a brother named Mikhail. He has a sister named Ilyana. Mikhail has the same ability as Colossus, only his ability is limited to his arms as far as I know. Now, I'm pretty sure after the Redconing of Marvel, he probably can go straight organic metal all over too. But if he could before 2008, they've never showed it. Now, as far as Colossus, Colossus at one time hawked the Hawk. And by hawking the Hawk, I mean the Hawk stands at 7 feet tall as the Hawk. He stands at a mere maybe 5'11", 5'10" as Bruce Banner. And we'll go into that later. We're on Colossus right now. Colossus, at Peter Rasputin, before way back in 1989 to 1995, Peter Rasputin was 7 feet 4, whether he was Colossus or whether he was not. So after the Seas Parallax episode, where they all went through the Seas Parallax and wiped all of their lives out and came back, with the exception of Rogue, because Dazzler shot Rogue through the Seas Parallax with Master Mode, killing Master Mode and believing to have killed Dazzler, who killed Rogue, who was believed to have woken up in the Savage Land with no powers and fell in love with Magneto, when she would eventually get her powers back. That's not here or there because we're on Colossus. Colossus, Havoc, Storm, Dazzler. See, I'm missing a couple. Colossus, Storm, Dazzler, Havoc. Madeline was dead by then. Polaris. I think that might be it. Those ones that I just named, and Logan, they went through the Sears Parallax. Hold on, scratch that. Logan did not go through the Sears Parallax, excuse me. That would be that little small mirror thing that Dazzler used to carry around after she got a dagger in the face by Freedom Force's Spindle, the 6-armed chick who came from Longshot's world. To keep an eye on Longshot. Alright, so Longshot went home. That's pretty much his story right there. When all the X-Men decided to go through the Sears Parallax, Longshot pretty much gave them the finger, being that he only has 4 fingers on both hands. I guess he gave them the middle, because he's like this. He doesn't have 5 fingers, he only has 4 on each hand. Don't ask. If you look at it carefully, he's not from Earth. He's from the TV world, where I guess the pinkies are not usable. Anyway, Longshot is the only X-Man besides Logan who did not go through the Sears Parallax. Logan, I think he got teleported back to Australia, and the Reavers got a hold of him, and Jubilee went with him because she found him and saved him. And you have the comic where he's like pent up on an X from the Reavers. That was like where they met. They actually met Jubilee in a mall. She followed them home and never left their side. Just secretly was not allowed to go on missions. Long story, we'll do Jubilee another day, especially since they retconned the fuck out of her too. Okay, so Colossus, when he came through the Sears Parallax, was no longer Peter Rasputin. He was Peter somebody else, Peter Nicholas. He became Peter Nicholas. He fell in love with the Morlock lady, the leader of the Morlocks. Callisto? I don't remember her name, but I know she had a patch on her eye. But apparently she must have went to the Sears Parallax too, or she had a fake eye, but she was made beautiful by whatever the hell it was that made her beautiful, and they had been together, and they had a loft in Manhattan. Colossus didn't even remember being a mutant. He didn't remember being a legend, and he damn sure lost a whole foot and a half at his size. Now he only turns into Colossus, and he's only 7 feet tall instead of the 7'4", because he used to be the tallest hero in the Marvel Universe, or outlaw, because the X-Men were outlaws, but they were still heroes. You figure it out. Anyway, because Colossus used to tower over Blockbuster, because everything that I'm telling you now happened after the Inferno Saga, which is why I said Madeline is dead. Alright? Because the X-Men pop back up every now and again in New York and went on missions, and then they got to the point after Dazzler kills Rogue that they just wanted to end it all, so they all walked to the Sears Parallax. However, Storm went to the Sears Parallax and got kidnapped by Nanny and his guardian, and they turned Storm into a little girl, all on the order of Cameron Hodge. We will not go there. This is about Colossus. Colossus wakes up in Manhattan. He's an artist now. He makes money selling art. He has a loft, and he's with Callisto. And he turns into Colossus now. He's only 7 feet tall. He no longer is 7'4", nothing but muscle. He's smaller than he was before. The Sears Parallax totally fucked him up, and Marvel clearly didn't have a problem with it. On the ending, though, when the X-Men rejoined, when X-Factor became Havoc, Wolfsbane, Richter, something Cooper, and Stevie, and Jamie Mordox. I'm missing somebody. The original 5 X-Men went back to the X-Men, and that's when they split into teams with they were gold and blue. I don't know why it was gold and blue instead of gold and silver, but it was gold and blue. Cyclops led the gold team. Excuse me. Storm led the gold team. Cyclops led the blue team. Don't ask. The blue team consisted of the original 5 X-Men and 2 more members. The gold team consisted of Storm, Wolverine, Colossus, and some other people. Jean Grey negotiated between groups. Alright? And then they brought in Emma Frost and Mystique and all these other motherfuckers. And, sorry for cussing. Cyclops and Jean broke up. So it was like, at this time, I'm starting to stop reading the comics because of the whole way they fucked up Colossus. So we're gonna go to the Hawk now. Alright. So as you know, the Hawk is 7 feet tall when he's the Hawk. He's never been 7'4". He's never been under 7 feet tall. When he is the Hawk, he's 7 feet tall. Now, after the Reconing, I have no idea how tall the Hawk is. I no longer care. Because after the Reconing, it's like all the reading I've done in all my life, they have totally changed everything and have pretty much screwed the Marvel Universe up for me, which is like the same thing with the DC Universe, which I stopped reading the DC Universe because of the same crap. Anyway, and plus, we won't go into DC while we're messing with Marvel right now. I'll make a DC video, though. Anyway, so Hawk as Bruce Banner is between 5'11" and 6 feet. We're going to give that as the estimate. Now, he's also, as Bruce Banner, maybe $170. But as the Hawk, he weighs damn near a ton. And the angrier Hawk gets, the bigger he grows and the madder he gets. The problem is he doesn't grow in height, he just grows in girth. Now, they changed all of that shit. Except for the fact that the angrier Hawk get, the stronger Hawk get. Unfortunately, when I stopped reading the comics, the last person the Hawk tangled with was a mutant named Onslaught. It was a combination of Professor Xavier and Magneto. And Onslaught killed the Hawk by ripping Bruce Banner clean out of him, which was fucking awesome. I'm going to leave the video right there, Hawk, because I'm not that big of a Hawk fan anymore. I mean, I love the Hawk. I liked it when Hawk went from being green back to his original gray color, and when he was doing that in his transition, he was smarter but not stronger, and then he found a way to be the Green Hawk, but with Bruce Banner's body. That's when the Hawk was a great comic, and when they changed it away from that, I stopped. When they completely reduxed him, and I was like, what are you guys doing? It's great, the comic is awesome. He's Bruce Banner, he's married to Betty Banner, and he's the fucking Hawk at the same time. So mentally he was Bruce Banner, but physically he was the Hawk, and the government stopped hunting him. It was awesome. And then they retconned all that shit. And then he met Onslaught. And then he died. So that ended that right there, and I'm going to end that Hulk section right there. So now we're going to go into Wolverine, aka now James Howlett, Canadian millionaire or whatever the hell he was. Which, technically, Logan was probably as rich, if not richer than Xavier, but Xavier comes from old money. We're not going to touch Xavier's money right now. We're not going to touch Wolverine's money right now. We're going to go with what has been going on with Wolverine before the Reconing and the death. So, from the day he sprung on the X-Men pages, he had no memory of who he was. He didn't remember pissing off the Hawk. He didn't remember Alpha Flight. He didn't remember a lot of things. But he went by the name Logan because henceforth it was on his dog tag. Logan actually has a meaning in the dictionary. I can't remember what the hell it means. I think it means like lone wolf or lone gun or some shit like that. It has a meaning to it. But anyway, so he was known as Alpha Flight's amazing punk when they came to come get him back. Now Logan, Wolverine, James Howlett, whatever you want to call him, is only 5'3". So he's just 2 inches taller than Jubilee. Alright, because Jubilee's only 5'1". And so, Jubilee, she has become more like a daughter, maybe a romantic interest. It kind of depends on how you want to look at it. But Jubilee has been Wolverine's dust you off, but not holler back girl, all through his career from 87 to the 90s to whenever the hell they did the Reconing. Prior to that, Wolverine didn't have any name outside of Logan. However, whatever he was doing his entire life, he was making enemies. And also, before Sinister got a hold of Creed, aka Sabretooth, Sabretooth was only 5'8", 5'11", somewhere in there, before Sinister got a hold of him and jacked him up. So you guys only know the jacked up version of Sabretooth, Victor Creed or whatever the hell his name is. And he and Wolverine basically have the same powers, but in the comic book, they were not biologically linked. Until somewhere deep in the 90s where they were saying that Victor Creed raised Wolverine. That he was his like stepfather or something. And that he killed Silver Fox. And Wolverine had a Native American girlfriend named Silver Fox from the First Nation in Canada. And then they come to find out that the Weapon X program was real but not real, and then wound up being real. So him and Silver Fox actually did have a relationship, but to them they didn't have a relationship, but then they did have a relationship. You get me? It's kind of like being the good guy, playing the bad guy, being the good guy. Okay? Or being the bad guy, playing the good guy, being the bad guy. Any way you want to read that. Or, my favorite from Jack Black, I'm the dude playing the dude disguised as another dude. That should sum that up in your sum of all fears. Now, when you get to that, you know, Wolverine being shorter, he's always been shorter. He's been the shortest member of the X-Men team. He was not the shortest member of Alpha Flight because that would be Puck. Now, when he encountered Cyber, when he encountered his genetic clone, it was a machine. I can't think of his name, but he used to walk around with a little girl who walked around with a doll. It was fucking awesome. You'd have to go back to the Wolverine comics itself before they switched it over to where X-23 became Wolverine. Also with the X-Men before X-23 became Wolverine. Because X-23 originally does become Wolverine. And depending on which comic you get, Wolverine has kids. And also depends on which timeline. Because you know Marvel, they love fucking with you in the timelines and the alternate universes and the other dimensions and all that other shit. So I think I missed a character. So we're not going to worry about it. We're going to jump into Juggernaut now. Now Juggernaut, Kane Marco, a.k.a. the Juggernaut, a.k.a. Kane Marco, stepbrother of Charles Xavier, because Marco's daddy married Xavier's mom because she came from old money. Alright? Now Kane Marco, at one time, before the Redconing, was not a mutant. His powers was magical. And then he found the magical stone. It gave him the suit, and the helmet was the key to the suit. And until someone else found the stone, he had the power. But when the Juggernaut's powers got stolen, the first thing he did was go to the X-Men to get help to get the stone back, because some little puny guy got it and started fucking up everybody and becoming the Juggernaut. And the more he used the Juggernaut's power, the less the Juggernaut had to live, because he was so attached to the stone that if he didn't get it back, he would die. So he initially gets the stone back, and now here's where they fucked up in Deadpool. Juggernaut has never, ever, ever whooped Colossus's ass. He's never been bigger than Colossus. Colossus has always been the tallest hero for a mutant. He's always been 7'4" until that serious parallax thing. Juggernaut eventually will one day have become an X-Man. This happens after the Redconing, because before the Redconing, Sabretooth and Wildchild became X-Men, and Sabretooth used to have Wildchild on a chain. Now this also happened during the alternate universe timeline of the Age of Apocalypse, and when they came back to normal, everything was right, and Wolverine got his hand back. It was just a really awesome ass book, so you should probably read Age of Apocalypse if you haven't. It's pretty good. Juggernaut stands 7'2". That's it. If 7'2", if not 7 feet. But he's never towered over Colossus. Ever. He's also never been able to beat Colossus in a fight, period, fair or not. He's never given Colossus the ass whooping that he got in Deadpool 2. For those who are not X-Men fans, trust me. And there's a couple of episodes in the comics where, unless it was in my imagination or unless it was a what if, Colossus picked up the ground that the Blob was on, because no one can move the Blob. Now again, that could have been a what if. I'm still trying to find it. I know I had that comic, so I'm not sure if it's an X-Men episode or if it's a what if, but I know I had that comic. So if someone knows about it, they can find that and help me out. Anyway, Colossus and Juggernaut, whenever they have gone fisticuffs, they went fisticuffs in a bar. And this is in the early 80s, it was like a spin-off miniseries where Colossus and Juggernaut went fisticuffs in a bar, and Colossus was already in his metal form. I guess it was a bar for mutants. And Juggernaut came through. I don't know why he came through, but he came through. And Colossus wound up beating his ass in the bar. Anyway, moving on. Juggernaut has been known to team up with Eric the Red, who was secretly Cyclops. And in the cartoon, they changed all that. But for the most part, if you're an X-Men fan, then you know that Eric the Red has always been Cyclops. It's nobody else, it's Cyclops. But I forgot why he became Eric the Red. It was some undercover mission that he went on for the Shi'ar Empire, and he became Eric the Red. They built him a reputation, and he went off and he started fucking shit up. This was before he found out that Corsair was his father, etc. Or actually, I take that back. It was after he found out that Corsair was his father, and I think that's what led him to becoming Eric the Red, so that he could go and infiltrate something or another. Well, in the cartoon in the 90s, Eric the Red was a whole different individual, and he was not Cyclops. But in the comic book, when this cartoon came on, Eric the Red was still Cyclops. It was his alternate ego for when he went to the Shi'ar Empire. So we're gonna end this with Juggernaut with this. Juggernaut, who got the stone back, by the way, he threw the stone into outer space so that no one could ever take his powers again. So they did that, and they did that also in the cartoon to make sure that they kind of stayed in line with the comic book, so that no one could steal the Juggernaut's power ever again, because he was so in tune with the stone that anything happens, someone else gets the stone and recite the phrase, he loses his power and he would probably lose his life. So when he got the stone back, he recited the thing, and instead of crushing the stone or whatever, not knowing what would happen, he threw the stone into outer space. So Juggernaut's not as dumb as everyone pretended him to be. And now our final character. Where do we begin? Let's begin with his original birth name. His original birth name is Nathan Charles Xavier Scott Summers. You know him as Cable, or Nate Gray, depending on what comic you read, or Strife. Now, the reason why I did Cable last, because in the Deadpool movie, they don't touch on any of that. Okay, they just touch on him coming from the future to fuck up this kid named Russell. Fire Fist. Anyway. Fire Fist. Anyway, moving on. So, before the Reconing of all that, Cable, who was poisoned by the legacy virus from Apocalypse, because I don't know what the hell Apocalypse was doing with the legacy virus when the legacy virus was supposed to fuck up mutants, but apparently Apocalypse had plans for Cable, but he needed the legacy virus to be injected into Cable. And as a child, Apocalypse kidnapped Cable from Sinister and Madeline Pryor. By the end of the Inferno saga, Apocalypse had grabbed little Christopher, Nathan, Dre Spring, etc., 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 Cable, and took him from them. So at this time, X Factor was still the original 5 X-Men working for the government, and they cornered him into a building which was a spaceship, and then it took off, and the X-Men went after him, and the Iceman, who was not gay at the time, came out of his mouth and said, okay, well, let's go get him. And Cyclops said, yeah, we're going to go out in a blaze of glory. And he said, yeah, we don't really have time for Bon Jovi right now. Anyway, I have that comic. I don't remember the name of it, but I have it in the basement somewhere. But anyway, that being said, the man who would be grown up as Cable had a sister who came from the future to help the X-Men save Cable. But then she managed to have to take Cable by the end of the saga back into the future to save his life. However, the legacy virus had taken its toll, so his entire left side, his left leg, his left arm, and the majority of all this muscle mass was cybernetic. So he technically was a cyborg. Alright? So I guess with the cybernetic parts, eventually they wound up putting it, I guess, all through his body, because his left hand could now shoot a beam and everything when it couldn't before, because his mutant powers, because his father is a mutant and his mother is the clone of a mutant, his mutant powers is telekinetics, and his telekinetics was fighting the legacy virus and holding his body together. The cartoon does not touch on that, because in the cartoon he uses Wolverine to cure the legacy virus, but it doesn't hurt him. It fixes him a little bit, but when he comes back into the future, now his son is Apocalypse 2. So just so did you know, fun fact, Apocalypse 2 is Cable's biological child, alright, which is the grandson of Cyclops. It's a long story. If they continued that little line, that timeline, it would have been great, but they didn't. I don't know what they ever became of Apocalypse 2. Same thing with the Mojo 2 and the X-Men. They didn't really continue that storyline. It was more like an X-Babies side deal. It never really launched like it should have. And then the same thing with Apocalypse 2. But the thing with Apocalypse 2, apparently in the Cable miniseries, his mom came back to life in the future. I don't know how that happened, but Madeline Pryor was back, and they had a fairly decent relationship. And then also, so did you know, for timelines, Nate Gray, who was the son of Jean Grey and Cyclops, but not Cyclops and Madeline, him and Cable had a fight. I'm still hunting for that comic. I'm pretty sure Cable from 6161, but I won't swear to it because I can't find the comic. I got to read the first episode and I didn't get to see the rest. Then there's a what if Cable had killed all the X-Men, and that was pretty good. And that was a 3-part, and I didn't get the 3rd part of that because no one seems to have it. So you have to do a lot of searching when you're doing what ifs. Then Cable fought Strife. Strife is a clone who was believed that he was the original Cable, so he did everything he could to draw Cable out and try to kill Cable. So he talked to Legion, who tried to kill his father. And then Legion, who failed to kill Xavier, opened up some kind of wormhole, and Cable and Strife fell into it, and it was all over the news, and all the X-Men started hunting down Cable because they thought that Cable was trying to kill Xavier, when it come to find out that it was actually Strife that was trying to kill Cable and Xavier at the same time, and then resume Cable's identity. Okay, so now if that all didn't twist you up, it gets better. During all of that Executioner song, Comrade Hodge reappears and starts robbing mutants of their powers, and so Storm and them all take care of that, while Cable is still fighting Strife, the MLF, and all these crossovers happen. So in the end, Cable winds up being the real Cable, and then Strife goes his own way. Nate Gray appears. They have a fight. Nate Gray disappears because Nate Gray also has the legacy virus. He's also dying because there's no Logan in his universe, so he can't get a cure for the legacy virus. But instead of getting a cure from the Logan in 616, he goes home. So we don't know if he dies or not. Alright? But as far as the Cable in 616, the cyborg is actually the real Cable. There's a mini comic called Cyclops and Phoenix, who their bodies, well, their essence was transferred into the bodies of the Dre Spring family who raised Cable. And they also had the little girl who would grow up to be the sister that would go back to the past to save Cable as a baby and bring Cable back to the future where he could be raised by Jean Grey and Cyclops as the J Spring family. It's a long Star Trek clusterfuck within that, so you'll have to just go ahead and find that book. But again, everything I'm telling you happened before 2010 and 2008's Redconing of the Marvel Universe. So I want to end it with that because I am a Cable fan. Cable at one time was one of my favorite comic characters. Cable has been through a lot of stuff. Alright? So you have to remember that Cable is a human and a mutant and a cyborg. Alright, not like Deathlock, who's just a cyborg. Anyway, that being said, we're going to end with the name is Cable. Remember it.